one night I decided to do a shot of heroin, and I left like half the bloody rig in a safe, and then I woke up in the middle of the night and went to do it again. And then I went back to sleep, and I woke up and I was in the worst pain of my life. And turns out my blood went septic. So are you familiar with, yeah, so my blood went septic. So I'm actually at my mom's house. I convinced them to let me stay in the guest bedroom somehow. I could always manipulate till I'm doing all right now.
Yeah.
And so I woke up in their guest bedroom just pouring in sweat. My head felt like it was in vice grips. I was in the worst pain of my life. I remember the fan was like on the oscillation mode, so goes swivels back and forth, and every time it would pass over me, it was just like pins and needles on my body, but I couldn't get myself to get up and get out of bed. And I think I fell back asleep. And yes, I fell back asleep, and I woke up again, and I knew something was up. So I decided, all right, I'm going to go to the hospital and just see if there's something wrong. So they took my blood cultures and sent me home, and just, whatever, assumed it's just another addict showing up in the hospital.
Yeah.
And I went back to sleep, and I woke up with multiple missed calls and voicemails from the doctor telling me to, I needed to get back there right away. And I knew I might be there for a while. And so I remember calling up the Connect and, making sure I had everything situated before I went into the hospital, which, looking back now, was really crazy because, when your blood's septic, I mean, it can be a matter of hours before it's fatal if you don't get some. I didn't know it was septic at this point. They knew, that's why they kept calling me.
Yeah.
So I eventually, sat in the McDonald's parking lot for an hour, getting the drugs, getting myself to the hospital on my own time. Go there, it's COVID. They stick this giant Q-tip up my nose. I remember they took me in this back room, and just this huge Q-tip, and they like just blood poured all over out my shirt. They're, they have the hazmat suit on, and it's it's a chaotic time. And they end up administering me to the hospital and putting me in the pediatric unit. And like, at this point, like, I look like shit. I'm in pain. My body's just turning on me, and I'm cussing out all these nurses and just treating everyone like shit. And, looking back, I feel really bad. These were nurses that are used to caring for, children, babies. And here I am. Then after, they kind of were telling me what was going on, and I wasn't really paying too much attention. I was in a lot of pain. They ended up finding endocarditis in my heart as well, which is a serious heart infection. And even through all that, I was still trying to shoot dope in the hospital. I'd snuck a bunch in there with me. And I remember that first shot of dope after being in there for about a week. I snuck into the bathroom and went to do it, and it was like the worst pain. Like, I thought I was getting, a little bit better. Because originally my bones ached. My whole entire body was just in so much pain, and that kind of subsided a little bit. So I went in the bathroom, did the shot, and it was the worst experience of my life. Cleaned everything up, went back to the bed. I ended up being in there for 72 days.
Wow.
Yeah. So they told me about my blood being septic, endocarditis. And like I said, I didn't really know what that meant at that time. Actually, in the process of writing the book is when I really started digging in and learning what was, how close to death I really came. And they hooked me up to antibiotics around the clock. So every 4 hours, I had a PICC line in my arm. And so I just kept getting antibiotics around the clock. And about 3 weeks in, roughly, the pain, subsided. They put me in another room, and I just kept having this pain in my back. And it felt like someone was sticking me with a knife over and over again. It was the best way I could describe it. And they just assumed, he was a junkie trying to get more drugs. They did an MRI, didn't find anything. But my mom was a nurse at another facility, like I said. So she would come in her scrubs when she was off and just kind of sneak in. Because like I said, COVID, there's no visitors. But they would let her, or she would just kind of go in there. And she said on a couple occasions she came in and I was sleeping and I was twitching in my sleep, like obviously in pain. So they did a second MRI, this time with contrast, and they found an abscess millimeters from my spinal cord, and had it touched, it would have paralyzed me. So they did emergency surgery the next morning, washed it out or whatever they did. And I woke up and I was pain free. And I just decided in that moment, like, I'm going to get my shit together. I went from, just being an asshole. They found all the drugs that I had brought in with me, so I had to give those up. And I turned my whole room into a gym. I had like a TRX hanging from the door. I was doing pull-ups on the pull-up bar, like started eating healthier food in the hospital, just being, trying to be better. And I did, and I stuck it out, and I was somewhat enjoying my life. I was really confined to my room, and after 72 days, I think I had 6 days left, and I decided that I was going to sneak out. So I had one of my friends come pick me up, and obviously knew I was going to get caught, right? I mean, the antibiotics take 4 hours, or I'm sorry, are every 4 hours, but they took about 2.5 hours to administer. So there's a very little break before they were ever coming in and switching me out. And not long after I went to her house, we were drinking. They called me, but I was hammered in a very short amount of time. And I went back to the hospital, tried to fight the security guards, uh, ended up like pulling my own PICC line out of my arm and just left. Drove myself there, went back to my car that had been sitting there for over 2 months. I had a flat tire, and I just started searching for those little orange caps that were floating around my car and started shooting dope right then and there again.
Wow.
Yeah. And that went on for another year.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's been a journey for sure. A lot of stupid decisions, you know.